All right, so this next topic is pretty interesting. It's grounding in diabetes. And this is of particular interest to me because I've lost loved ones to diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes. And that will always haunt me. The amount of people that could have been helped with this information, and that's why I do this stuff. That's why I make these videos. That's why I run the page. So last I checked, diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death worldwide, with about 80,000 people dying from it annually. And there are 2 types of diabetes. Well, there's 3. There's gestational diabetes, which can happen during pregnancy, but type 1 diabetes, insulin dependent diabetes, and type 2 diabetes, non-insulin dependent diabetes. All right, so really quick, type 1 diabetes is genetic when your immune system goes after and attacks the insulin producing beta cells of your pancreas. So you can't make enough of or sufficient amount of insulin. And insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar or glucose. It lets glucose enter the cells. So when these beta cells are being attacked and you're not making enough insulin, then the body can't fuel itself and blood sugar can get really high. And it also helps store excess glucose. It tells the liver to stop releasing glucose when it's not needed. It does a bunch of other things too with amino acids and fatty acids, but those are the big ones when it comes to diabetes. All right, so type 2 diabetes or non-insulin dependent diabetes, or adult onset, which usually arises from an unhealthy lifestyle. So the body either doesn't make insulin or that insulin isn't working correctly, which is insulin resistance. So your pancreas is just like, oh fuck, releases even more insulin, which again isn't functioning properly. So it can lead to hyperinsulinemia. So when insulin is really high, it can cause the insulin producing beta cells in your pancreas to start to deteriorate. And so now you've got bad combination of reduced insulin secretion and insulin resistance. And so just like type 1, blood sugar can get really high. The problem is pretty much the same in both types, but what causes them and how you go about treating them is different. And we won't go too in depth into those aspects, but we will talk about one potential preventative method or treatment, which is grounding. So in Poland, the Sokal brothers, who have contributed to much of our understanding of biological grounding, they did a series of studies that analyzed multiple clinical health parameters and measurements, and one of those studies was the effect of grounding on serum or fasting blood glucose concentrations. And these blood concentrations can assess whether or not you're diabetic, and you'll usually hear these numbers expressed in milligrams per deciliter or millimoles per liter. And so a normal fasting glucose concentrations can be between 70 and 100 milligrams per deciliter, or 5.6 and under millimoles per liter. If those concentrations get between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter, or 5.6 to 6.9 millimoles per liter, you're sitting in the pre-diabetic zone and you need to start getting your health in order. Above 126 milligrams per deciliter, or 7 millimoles per liter, on 2 separate tests, you're diabetic. So in their small study, they had 12 subjects with type 2 diabetes, 6 men, 6 women, that were randomly assigned to the grounded group and the insulated group, so double-blind study. And so for a 72-hour period, the grounded group was grounded and the other group remained insulated. And what they found was an average improvement in the grounded group in blood glucose regulation from 10.6 millimoles per liter to 7.4 millimoles per liter, which is huge. It's not stated the exact mechanism for how this is happening, but in an earlier study on grounding's effect on serum or blood concentrations of electrolytes, grounding reduced ionized calcium in the blood, which could indicate an exchange with the intracellular environment. And so beta cells release insulin in response to increased concentrations of calcium in the intracellular environment. So that might have something to do with it. I don't know. And another thing, cortisol, which we talked about in another video, real quick, what was found was that circadian cortisol secretions normalized in response to grounding. So glucocorticoids like cortisol, when they're released in excess and over-secreted, that's been shown to lead to diabetes and worsen metabolic control. And there's also a connection between cortisol levels and blood sugar. Excessive cortisol secretions have been associated with higher blood sugar levels. So these cortisol secretion curves, which are highest around 7 a.m. and lowest at midnight, these are blunted in people with diabetes. So if you're looking at the data, it's more of a flat curve. So these are just things to consider. This was a small study, but the results are really fascinating, and we're beginning to see a lot of these benefits of grounding manifest themselves in multiple ways in multiple conditions that are plaguing society today. So that's all I got. I'm sure I forgot some stuff, but hope you guys liked this video. So until the next one, see you guys later. Have a good week.